Gosh darn busy today running from meeting to meeting. I was unable to put together a monologue. I talked to my producer, Bill, about this. He says, don't do a monologue. Come into the show hot, and it makes your monologues even all the more special if you take a break from them once in a while. Well, we'll do that, and I don't know if we'll continue with them exclusively every day or not. I won't do one today, and you guys can let me know whether you like them every day or not, and if you want me to keep doing them. But on the way into work, coming off one of my meetings, many of you know I'm involved with an organization in town called Not My Kid, which is first and foremost a substance abuse prevention organization that deals with all forms of self-harm children may or may not engage in. And our job is to keep them in the may not column in any number of self-harms, including substance abuse, to harmful relationships, bullying, you name it. I was coming from a meeting over at Not My Kid at the same time that I was forwarded a headline from Washington, D.C. in the Washington Post. Let me just give you that headline. Drug overdose deaths soared to a record 93,000 last year. Now, the reason that stuck in my head, the reasons are severalfold. First and foremost, last time I looked at national drug overdose rates and wrote a column on them, the death toll was 40,000. Okay? We're at 93,000. What is that, an increase of about 125%? This is over the last 10 years. Over the last 10 years. Think about that. A 125% increase in drug overdose deaths. Now, let me just give you a little bit of perspective about this that was on my mind. For the last 48 hours, the president has been talking about violence in America. And he spends about 20% of every day over the last month talking about violence in America, mostly due to handguns, but violence in America nonetheless, because as we all know, those numbers have, of course, spiked. Violent crimes have spiked all over this country. How many people die a year from handgun violence? The thing Joe Biden spends so much time on. How many people? Would you be surprised to learn that the answer is severalfold less than drug overdoses in America? Would you be interested to know that it's something in the order of 20,000 people a year? 20,000 compared to 90,000? And this time, all this time, is spent on the 20? Is there nothing to be said for the 90,000 plus? Is there nothing to be said for it? We know how to tamp down, don't we? We know when we want to how to deal with a problem, even in harsh terms. We were told our war against COVID was a war. Average age of death, COVID, over 80. And we upended society. Upended it. Some people still want to keep it upended. We upended society over a disease, average age of death, 80. Drug overdose death, average age much closer to 30, 35, depending on the state. 30 to 35, with a heavy emphasis on young people. Under COVID, we harmed people who were young. We harmed the under 18-year-old population severely and dramatically with everything that contributes, everything you could want that could contribute to the initiation of substance use or substance abuse or relapse. Everything we could possibly do to contribute to that exacerbation, we did. What would some of those things be? How about take your parents' job from them? Put economic and financial stress on the family. How about that? How about disrupting? That's not the right word, actually. Disrupting is the wrong word. How about completely upending, completely revolutionizing our children's educational and social lives by taking them out of their schools, keeping them away from their friends, pitting friend against friend based on how the family and the public eye was handling not the big lie, but the big fear. You want your children healthy and you want them tired. You usually want them engaged in some form of club, group, or athletic activity. We stopped that. Boy, did we fast. Oh, yes, I forgot. If you were one of the lucky few percents who already had a substance abuse problem and were in recovery, we stopped your 12-step meetings too, and while at it, we would close churches and synagogues and mosques. Every condition you could possibly create if you wanted to cause a youth substance abuse problem, we did in the name of saving people who were 80. Meanwhile, we know darned well what the root causes and what the root points of origin and what the root etiologies of both violence and substance abuse or drug overdose are. We know this. We're not idiots. Look at the cities. Look at the cities that have de-indexed their crimes. Look at the cities that have defunded their police. Look at the cities whose mayors have not backed their police. Look at the cities who have allowed protesters and rioters to take over not only streets, but police precincts. Look at what we have done to the families who live in cities that have been devastated by depression after recession after recession after recession, with nothing but government checks and promises from one political party that if you just rely on the government, you'll be fine. We know what happens when you marry the government as opposed to a man to raise your children. We laugh at honor and are surprised to find traitors in our midst, C.S. Lewis said. He would go on to say, you remove the organ but demand the function. You castrate the flock and bid the geldings be fruitful. We don't need to confiscate the guns of law-abiding citizens and alter the Second Amendment of the United States. Similarly, if you want to look at what the main driver of these 90,000 plus deaths due to drug overdose in America are, the deaths that far outnumber homicides, the deaths that far outnumber gun deaths, 90% come through the border with Mexico. Does Joe Biden care? Does Kamala Harris care? I want a country that when it goes to war, goes to war. And when it goes to war, goes to war for the right things. I want a country that when it goes to war the way Alexander Hamilton said, like Hercules. Because we know how to solve these problems and win them if we want to. I want a country whose government is honest with its people. And I want a country who cares about all American lives from all causes of death. But first and foremost, I want a country that's responsible enough to go after the first and foremost and most harmful and serious causes of death that are preventable, not acts of nature, not acts of God, not acts of novelty, acts of pure evil, which should be considered homicides as well. After all, these are our Americans too. These are our fellow citizens too. I'm Seth Leibson, 602-508-0960. We'll be right back.